Right. If anybody tells you that a super zoom lens is no good or you shouldn't use one, run for your life. Ban those people from your social media. Just get away from them because they're not telling you the whole story. Let's take a look at the super zooms that I've used over the years. I mean, this goes way back for me. I guess it probably began back with the 18 to 200 millimeter for the APS-C, and I think that was a Sigma lens on either my Nikon D70 or D200. That would have been way back in 2004 or 2006, whenever I had the D70 in 2004 and then D200 starting in 2006. So anyway, super zooms. I always tend to hear people, these talking heads on YouTube and other places, where they basically say that super zooms are not very good, or they have problems, or that they act like it's something that you can't really use a lot or use as your only lens. And that is the case depending on, like with everything in photography, the two words, it depends. Because it does depend. It depends on your situation. I mean, you wouldn't probably want to pick a super zoom with a variable aperture, like we'll start looking at these here in a second. But something like even the 12 to 100 micro four thirds lens, f4. It's a constant f4, which of course it's like f8 depth of field. Because it's a ×2 crop factor compared to full frame. But if you need a lens that can capture more light or keep a constant aperture, then that makes a difference. Although the 12 to 100, we'll get into that, it does have a constant aperture, but again, it may be the depth of field may not be enough for what you need creatively, and the light gathering. So again, these are scenarios where I'm talking about using a super zoom. Let's go ahead and start opening up some of these. A super zoom on vacation, there's a variety of subjects. It's just general photography. There's all kinds of things you want to shoot, and I'll start talking about the exact lenses that these are in a minute. But everything in this gallery, and I'll put the link in the description below and pin a comment, but everything here was shot with a super zoom, and my definition of a super zoom that I'm using for this is anything from 24 to 28 millimeter on the wide end, and more than 120 millimeter, which is kind of like the standard, where they stop for a 24 to 120, for example. It'd be kind of more of a standard zoom range. But I'm going to say anything beyond 120 millimeters is a super zoom. So either 24 to 28 millimeter or thereabouts, up to something like 200 millimeter or even beyond. So that's kind of what I'm referring to as a super zoom. But the situations that we're talking about here are general photography. I mean, there's a wide variety of subjects, and anything from indoors and museums. This is island Santorini in Greece. But so bright lighting, dim lighting, but dim lighting where the actual subject is lit. So that could be a concert, for example, or museum. Like here's an example. Obviously the room is very dark, but the subjects that you're shooting are lit. I like shooting in museums because they have the best lighting. Obviously it's a museum and they want to showcase what they're presenting to the public, so they have good lighting. I like I like museums that have dark backgrounds and the subjects themselves are lit up. So that's what I like, and this is a perfect example of that. Or it could be something in a display case. So anything from dark to bright light, but again, with your subject being lit. Again, there's going to be some limitations for, here's another thing, in a museum, the subject is well lit, the rest of the room is dark or darkish. So there are some limitations with super zooms and depth of field. If you want the shallowest depth of field, using a variable aperture super zoom, and depending on the format, whether it's 4/3 or APS-C, is going to be more depth of field naturally than full frame and medium format. But there's lots of situations like this here, concert type situation, where fake Elvis, fake Conway Twitty, fake Michael Jackson. I forget who she was, fake Buddy Holly. Anyway, maybe that was fake Aretha Franklin. I don't know. Subjects are well lit. and then you have like kind of even lighting like this. So let's back up and explain what I have in here. So the best super zoom that I think I've ever used is the one for the Nikon Z mount. So that's, I put the description, or the model of the lens in the bottom left of the photo. So if you have the photo open, it's down here in the bottom left. Or if you're just scrolling over, scrolling up and down, and you hover your mouse over it, you'll see the model number. I think I've got them all in here, so I apologize if I missed some of them or have them mixed up, but I mixed up meaning not bundled together. I tried to mix or bundle all the lenses together, like this is all the Nikon Z 24 to 200, for example. But this 24 to 200, it's probably the sharpest and best optically that I've ever used in a super zoom. The bokeh is really pretty in the background. The background blur. Let's find one here real quick. Well, that one's somewhat, but I'm trying to find one that where we do have some background. Most of these are well lit and deeper depth of field. I just tried to pick the ones that I like the best as examples, but well, here's one. So you see the background is pretty blurry and kind of creamy. It's not harsh and just well, what bad bokeh looks like, and just real busy looking. So the 24 to 200 Nikon Z mount is probably the best one that I think I've used. I'll just kind of start scrolling through some of these as I talk about them. And these are all places that I've been, and that was Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's Island Santorini, Greece, I think, again. And this was Taos, New Mexico. I tried to replicate the scene that Ansel Adams did here with this old church. There's another view of that church. Well, I tried to get another, this one here. There's a photo from Ansel Adams. It's kind of like this, but I couldn't shoot wide enough because there's literally cars parked around in here, over to the left and back here behind where I'm standing. And so there's like an adobe church. Yeah, I tried to replicate what Ansel Adams did the best I could, but I couldn't do it exactly because of the modern society and cars all around. But this a lens like this, it's extremely useful. I mean, you're all the way at 24 millimeter on the wide end and way out to 200 on the telephoto end. And again, you can use it for all kinds of stuff, concerts. And here's a museum in New Mexico. I'm trying to remember, that's either not Albuquerque. I think that was that Santa Fe? But anyway, New Mexico. Fake Elvis again. This is Taos, New Mexico. Little town square, waiting for there was a little bus that showed up over here to do some kind of tour. I can't remember where exactly, but anyway, that's why I was standing there, and I thought, oh, that's a nice scene here, and just happened to have this dude standing here. It was back to me with the hat on, and it was a nice scene. This is Island of Santorini again, and in Greece, looking out at the morning sunrise. I believe that was morning sunrise. If you click over here, this little info button, by the way, photo details, that'll show you the camera model, the exact lens model, and if you find one that's not the right lens model for what I labeled it as, let me know. Aperture f13 in this case, and the date taken. But all that information's over here if you want to see that, shutter speed and everything, ISO. So just look how pretty these are. And again, just an old super zoom thereby says they're no good. And there's another good bokeh example with that lens. I got that lens when I bought it as a bundle with the Nikon Z5 when the Z5 was just released. And I believe in this case, that's back when I had my original Z7. So that's before I started switching around. I got a Z7 II, and then I believe I switched to the Fuji X-H2. Thought I was staying Fuji, all in on Fuji. And then, of course, the Nikon Z8 came out. And that changed my mind about it because it was cheaper and smaller than I thought it would be. So I just decided to switch back, and Nikon Z8 is my primary camera now. And I do switch around other cameras just for fun, but the Z8 is my primary camera. So these are all, again, the 24 to 200. I'll just kind of start scanning through some of these. And again, really nice bokeh. It's just plenty of dynamic range. In a nice lens like this, you can, oh, there's another good bokeh example. Get really creative with it. And there's another bokeh example. So I'll let you guys scroll through all this. Let's head on to these guys. This was in Asheville, North Carolina at the Biltmore Estate during the COVID stuff. See them wearing their mask there. They didn't look too thrilled that I was making a photo of that, but like back here in the back where I was standing, there was like a pathway. You just walk around, and we were just walking through there, touring the estate, and then these people are doing some wedding photos or whatever it is. I don't know if it's a wedding or not, but getting some photos of that girl there, and dudes are kind of giving me the evil eye or something. I don't know. Maybe it's just the way they were looking at it. But this is the same place at Biltmore. Thought that was really nice because there was a dark clouds up here and a break, and this was an evening. Was it evening? Date taken November 2020, 15. Oh, so 3:30. Actually, it wasn't. Maybe I darkened it a little bit because it wouldn't be that dark at 3:30. I think I just darkened it down. The Biltmore again. Let's move on. Again, I'll let you scroll through these on your own. But I have a variety of lenses in here from, again, micro four thirds all the way up to full frame. So let's get to my other favorite lens. Let me just scroll on through. So this town was in that Vampires movie. I think it was just called Vampires. I think it was. It was a John Carpenter movie with James Woods as the lead actor. They were running around killing a bunch of zombies. But again, this was kind of like in the COVID time. There was like hardly anybody here, so it made for good photos. That's Greece again. I think that was, where was that? I think that was New Mexico. New Mexico is fun to shoot in. I like the light and the colors and textures out there. That's the Bridges, Madison County. Yeah, there's the cafe that Robert Kincaid ate in. There's the bridge, Rosamond Bridge again, Greece. Let's try to get on to the, here we go, 12 to 100. So micro four thirds in this case. Bison just walking down the road. That was in Hayden Valley, I believe. This is in Black Hills, South Dakota, Custer State Park maybe. But Glacier National Park. Again, this is micro four thirds, a GH5, Panasonic GH5. And again, you can look at that here to see the camera right here if you want to see that. So this is probably besides the Nikon Z mount 24 to 200. This is probably my other favorite lens because it's so useful. I mean, I'm way back there and then zoomed into this gorilla here. I don't know if is that Magilla gorilla? Probably not. But bison were way far away. This is a pretty big crop that was out in Denver, Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge, Yellowstone, back in 2017, I believe, because that's with the GH5. Same thing. A lot of these are the GH5, and again GH5 and the Olympus 12-100. So you get the idea. People saying these lenses are not good or very limited to what you can use them for. A lot of compromises, blah, 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 blah. But you can make great photos with these lenses. Even the cheapos. We'll get on here in a minute just to the 12 to 1. Look, see. Well, you can't get background blur with a micro four thirds. Well, look at the background blur. But obviously, depends on the focal length. I was at 100 millimeter, which is 200 equivalent, and f4.5, so it's like f9, and it might be cropped. I can't remember, or I could have been close to the subject. So the closer you are to the subject, obviously, the shallower the depth of field will be, and the more telephoto end of the lens you use, or more telephoto lens you use, the more shallow the depth of field would be. And I would think most people already understand that, but if you're newer to photography, you don't understand that that's the case. The closer you are, or the more telephoto focal length you use, the more shallow the depth of field will be. But again, it's just an outstanding lens, and just so useful on the cameras, Panasonic or Olympus. because it's micro four thirds. It's a standard. You can use those between those two bodies. So again, there's your micro four thirds super zoom. There is a cheap, even the cheap ones. Some of the cheap ones can be really good. This is way back. This is probably 2015 though. 2015. Yeah, this is my Nikon DF. This lens, I had it also way back on the Nikon D700, so that would have been back in 2008. And they don't make this lens anymore. This exact version, I believe Tamron still makes a newer version of it, and I don't know if they still use the same glass. Maybe they do, but this was actually a really good lens optically. Kind of slow to focus, and kind of slow for the vibration reduction of they call it vibration compensation or whatever, VC, but VR, vibration reduction for what Nikon calls it, but it's image stabilization. That image stabilization on this lens, it kind of spools up and just kind of clicks into place. So not for fast action shooting, but optically it was a really good lens, and I got some really nice photos. This is Colonial Williamsburg. This was my D700, I think. So, yep, D700 outside of Phoenix, Arizona, the Superstition Mountains, I think. Lost Dutchman State Park, I think is what that was. And this was way back 2010. But yeah, this was a kind of a cheapo lens, but again, super useful, and optically, I think it was pretty good. I was always pretty happy with it. And if you could frame what you wanted and get it focused in time and shoot it, I mean, it's really nice. This is that same lens. I tried to group all these together. So again, if you find some that are not, they're out of place as far as like some of the lenses are mixed up, where you get into a different lens and it's not this lens anymore, and it's kind of hit and miss. But they should all be grouped together. So again, that old 28-300 Tamron, I really liked that one. It was a good lens. It's a lot of stuff here from Colonial Williamsburg. Smoky Mountains, same lens. Back to Colonial Williamsburg, and out in our field. And then this is the Nikon 28-300. This lens has been around for quite a while. I remember way back when Trey Ratcliffe, I don't know if it's Ratcliffe, guy got well known for the HDRs, even though they were kind of like overcooked HDRs way back when HDR first started to become a thing, and then he kind of settled down and did more reasonable HDRs, and I have no idea what he's doing now. But anyway, he used to really tout this lens and talk it up. But see, again, really nice bokeh back there. It's a little bit heavier and kind of a bigger lens. It's not super big, but and it is variable aperture. Most of these are 3.5 to 5.6, but you can get some really nice photos with these. And it's like a lot of these were with my D600, the old Dustmaster. I remember that there was a class action lawsuit against Nikon for that D600 with dust or some kind of oil or grease on the sensor that would get on there from probably the shutter action. I don't know. Or the mirror, I don't know what it was, but I never really had that big a problem with mine. I never really noticed it much or at all, really, and just cleaned it a few times. And anyway, big drama about the D600, and they released the D610 to replace it, which was a little unusual for Nikon to do, but they just wanted to get rid of the D600. This is probably D600 again. Won't go through every one of these. You can go through them yourself. Now, here's one that's the Sony 24-240. That's a really big range, and even heavier than those other lenses. So this one's probably the heaviest of the super zooms that I've used. But again, it really wasn't that bad. Optically, I thought it was pretty good. Or even really good. This was with the A7R3. It's the only full frame Sony that I've ever owned. Owned a few of the APS-Cs, but yeah, so that lens, I liked it. I really liked that lens. Again, it wasn't obviously as good as the 24-105 f4 Sony lens, but very useful. And then we'll get down into some of the even cheap lenses. Oh, here's I have a few of these way back in 2007. Goes way back. My Nikon D200, standing in the parking lot of Clingman's Dome in Smoky Mountain National Park, and it was just literally I had no idea that it was going to be like this. We just drove up there and parked in the parking lot, and it was getting close to sunset. I had a cheap old tripod that I still use now, and there it is, a D200 with a 18-200 Sigma, and got a really nice shot there. And this one's kind of the reason this one doesn't look as good. I kind of overcooked it on the processing because I only have, unfortunately, a JPEG version of this. Way back when, I was kind of dumb and didn't save the RAW files. So now all the photos that I really liked from the past, I kind of stuck with how they were edited, unless I want to try to edit a JPEG, which just editing an already edited file, and it doesn't work out too good. So this is that Panasonic Lumix 14-140. I believe I had two versions of this lens, I believe. I think this might have been the newer version. I don't remember. There's like a 3.5 to 5.6 and a 3.5 to 5.8 or something like that. We'll see here in a second. But some of these, I think these were with the, well, I know, okay, here's the older one. Yeah, f4 to 5.8, and that's what it was. So this must have been the older one. That's when I used that in Yellowstone way back in 2011, and this was a Panasonic GH2. I kind of tend to remember things based on the camera that I had and where I was. So I see this and I was like, oh, I remember that was 2011. I had a GH2, and I also had a D700 there shooting that, which I wouldn't do that these days. I only take one camera these days. But yeah, so that's that GH2, and then these would have been that newer version of that 14-140 Panasonic lens. But yeah, as you can see, really nice photos out of those lenses. This is that September 11th 9/11 memorial in New York City. Where was that? Grand Central Station, I think that was, in New York City. And there's that same lens again. It was Cuba. This was a G9, I believe. Yeah, G9. That's that old lens from the GH2. And then we get into the Olympus 14-150, so it's like a 28-300, f4 to 5.6. And again, that one, there was a couple versions of that one. This was the old one. I believe I have some of the newer version in here. And again, yeah, here's the newer one. You see the 2 on the end there. That's the newer version. Here's Mr. Vulture, the young vulture in the barn. The moon, county fair. Minuteman National Historic Park, or whatever it is, military park, Minuteman National Historical Park. That's where the basically American Revolutionary War began. Paul Revere and his dudes were riding down this road here, what they call the Battle Road, I guess. It goes between Lexington, Massachusetts, and Concord. So these are some old historic buildings along that road there, where the whole revolution began. Let's see. Yeah, still that lens, that old Olympus. There's version 2. Now, how did I get in? Oh, it's a really severe crop is what that is. And getting close to the, okay, then we got into the 18-135 from Fuji. That lens, I've kind of mixed results on that one. I'd say it's pretty good, but it's not as sharp and just not as nice as some of those other super zooms I used. It's reasonable, it's pretty good, but and depending on the scene, I have mixed feelings about that lens. It's pretty good though. There might be some other. This was one of the last few concerts where little Jimmy Dickens or whatever his name was, at the Grand Ole Opry. One of the last concerts he was in before he died. When was that? That was 2014. I believe that's right, as far as the story about when he died. So that's that 18-135 again for Fuji. Again, it's a pretty good lens. I liked it, but I would have liked it to have been better. So anyway, that's it really. And there's the old Nikon 28-300 with the F to Z adapter on a Nikon Z7. So that's it. Again, I just wanted to kind of point this out, that super zooms are not garbage. And again, if you hear somebody saying, you don't want a super zoom, well, it depends on what you want a super zoom for and how you're going to use it, because you obviously see a wide variety of photos here, and you notice that I don't shoot a lot of action. There's some action here on stage, but excuse me, like sports and that sort of thing, car races, I don't normally do that. Maybe one of these lower end super zooms may not keep up with something like that as far as focusing and so on, but if for general photography, things like this, these wide variety of subjects, you absolutely can use a super zoom and get fantastic photos. So that's all I want to say about that, and I'll put like I said, I put a link to this in the gallery or the comments below, and also in the description of the video. All right, well, thanks for watching.